my friend Soda Pop lives in a diner called the Maple 76. It's up in a real pretty spot over by Morgantown. So for our first episode, I got myself ready to take a real long walk. I left the nest for the foreseeable future and headed out across the bog. But ain't it just like me to run into the most Appalachian cryptid still within sight of the camp? Damn. That's another story for another day. After some thinking, I figured I'd cross over through Bogtown and avoid the mire, hang south toward Watauga, and then hook northwest over the divide toward the forest. So I set out on my trip. Just the thought of all that distance made me thirsty. Thankfully, Soda Pop's got a stockpile at the Maple 76, so on I went. Watauga, city of the future. More like a real quiet graveyard, although I always wondered why more people didn't try to settle here. After all, you got shelter, supplies, and an army of robots pretty much willing to serve your every need. Creepy, sorta, if you think about it. This trip, I hung a right before I got there, and I hadn't gone too far before I ran into this grisly scene. Now, let's talk about death claws. Upwards of 8 feet tall, with them horns and claws that can rip a man into little tiny pieces. They're probably the most fearsome predators of the wasteland. And if I learned anything from watching them for years, it's that you never, ever, ever disturb them off their nests. So, it wasn't real hard to figure out what had happened, without needing to do much more investigating. Besides, I was on my way to meet Soda anyway. So after a quick stop to take a look at Fort Defiance, I headed for the old monorail, aiming to follow the tracks west toward Foundation. As night started coming on, I realized I was surrounded by some pretty fearless prey animals, which meant I was probably safe to take a rest. After all, I still had a long way to go. Bright and early the next morning, I was up, getting some coffee, getting ready to start out all over again. Stopped to wash up, and then I was on my way. Happily, breakfast worked itself out with minimal effort. Climbing at the top of the monorail elevator is one of the prettiest sights you'll ever see in Appalachia. And maybe that's just my opinion, but I think not. I jumped up on the monorail, headed west, just like I used to. Man, these are some of the best views out there. Although when I stopped at a particularly nice spot, some unexpected lighting happened. I was glad I was up on the mountain. The biggest trouble I had up until that point was a couple of mole rats biting me in the ass. Irritating, but nowhere near enough to derail my trip to the interview. Still, Foundation was a welcome sight to my tired feet. Getting a chance to exchange a few caps with Minerva, grab myself a hoagie, and sleeping in bed didn't go unappreciated, I can tell you that. In the morning, I was ready to go. I checked my equipment, said my goodbyes, and headed out west again to meet up with Soda. I was happy to be walking, although it seemed like not everybody was.
I don't like the way you've been looking all mighty around these parts. Sick of hearing about you.
Yeah, I think she might have confused me with somebody else. In any case, as I picked up the train tracks again, I ran into this guy, said his name was Nat, all alone and working hard.
On a hot day like this, your generosity is a refreshing change.
I gave him a Nuka-Cola. He let me take a rest, but I was anxious to get to Soda. Now, this part of the tracks is almost always home to at least a pair of yellow bikes. If you ain't seen them before, Count yourself lucky, 'cause I heard that even before the war, these things called bears would rip you to shreds almost as easy. If they smell you, they'll kill you. They're pretty huge and pretty fearless, so if you ain't prepared, don't engage them and expect to walk away.
I'm still looking forward to watching part 2 of
Them teeth and claws and the stuff of nightmares. Take it from me. After some careful playing possum so I could get him distracted, I managed to be the one who walked away this time. I mean, I guess if I hadn't been, this would be a pretty incomplete travelogue. I mean, wouldn't it? I stopped to thank this gentleman for the help. Then it was move, 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 all my way again. It's a riot of color up here, and I've camped here many a time, because it sort of fills my heart with joy. I flipped a coin to see whether I'd go north or west, and west won, and I immediately got invited to lunch by a settler on our way from here to there. But then, I got the best surprise of all. My real dear friend, who I hadn't seen since our paths crossed in the spring. In the morning, I was off again, down the highway. And here's some free advice for all of you new to Appalachia. If you want an easy road, take this way. And I'll tell you why. Because straight ahead is more trouble than it's worth. Just in case you ain't seen 'em before, these are the hellholes that spawn them fuckers. Scorch beasts. But knowing me, I'm always hankering for a fight. I was lucky enough to run into Graham. We decided to go on together. Picked our way around that hole real careful.
Well, maybe all of this is a memory. Or a dream? Or a memory of a dream.
Well, I didn't have the answer to that. But when I saw Bleeding Kate's grindhouse, I at least had the answer to where I'd sleep. Bleeding Kate's, the movie theater out here is rare enough. But it's kind of a shame it ain't functional, even though it's got that Raider chic going on. 'Cause I don't think I've ever actually seen a real movie. Anyway, Graham helped me clear out some sting wings and then he went on his way. I made myself comfortable and settled in for a rest. Not for long, though. The wind down here always makes me sort of restless. But I was glad I had the camera rolling, because between y'all and me, I'd like to talk to the person who left this here. Just talk, you know, that's all, I promise. Just talk. Really. Man, the Capitol building always amazes me every time. With some careful looking around and some quiet moving, I hung north of New Gad, leaving us right on track to follow the river up to Morgantown and the Maple 76. I ran into a handful of mire lurks about 5 minutes in. They thought they were going to make trouble. Well, they pretty much just made lunch, so thanks, I guess. If you're new to the area and short on supplies, this is one of the most resource-rich places you can go. And it's pretty peaceful overall, although you gotta watch out for super mutants along the river, and of course the mire lurks. I passed Greg's mine supply going north, headed back to the river to avoid a fight for the sake of time. And met a prospector. We shared some stories and a little elbow grease. And then, what do you know? Here we were, in Morgantown. Real close to Soda Pop, and the end of our very first journey. I tried to come into town real quiet like, but overall, the trouble was pretty minimal. Looking around, this is one of my favorite parts of Appalachia. It's just so beautiful. Trying to figure out where to set up camp while I was talking to Soda Pop. Found an old house and thought it might be a good idea. But once I got inside and had a look around, well, it felt just a little bit too closed in for me. So I figured, yeah, maybe finding a good spot outside would be better. Treasure hunter pointed me to a nice shady place. Not really wanting to disturb the local wildlife, and to be honest, too damn excited to sit still, I figured I'd press on right to the diner, and there it was. And that gave me an idea. I was always wanting to make myself safe high up, so I figured I'd make a home in a Nuka-Cola style, and wait for the morning when I'd get a chance to ask Soda Pop all those questions that I'd walked all this way to get the answers to. We made it, Wastelanders. We're here at the Maple 76. If you want to hear everything Soda Pop revealed in the interview, tune your Pit Boys to the links provided and stand by. See you around, Appalachia, real soon.